Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another Mattel Jurassic World Dominion set to take a look at, and as you can see, it's another minifigure set, which is really exciting. This is the Fight or Flight pack, which is really cool. It's a brand new version of these kind of, minifigures where you have like some surprise figures included. You always have the view of one figure included, and then you also have a human figure, and it's kind of in the appearance of like a truck driving. I really like these. We've had two of them so far that were launched at the initial drop of the Jurassic World Dominion line, and now this is the newest one. And you can see again that we have three dinosaurs. We also have a plane and then a human figure, which we actually know is Kayla. And then you can see the back is pretty much the same thing, except now instead of the window showing the plane, we basically just have an image. So let's pop this open and check these out. So as far as the figures that we have included this time around, straight away we have an Atrociraptor, which is probably the only figure in here that doesn't really make any sense as far as this set goes, but that is definitely a nice looking Atrociraptor. We also have the Quetzalcoatlus in here. There is also another brand new figure, which is a brand new species. We've got the Pyroraptor finally in minifigure form. Another brand new figure would be Kayla. We'll put her right there. And then another brand new figure, even though it's not any type of a living being, we've got the plane, again, that Kayla flies in Jurassic World Dominion. So some really cool figures this time around, and a lot of this makes sense in a way because of the, fight or flight. Well, I guess actually the Atrociraptor does kind of make sense, because if you haven't seen Jurassic World Dominion yet, I'm going to, include some spoilers in this moment, so you may want to fast forward past this, but in Dominion we do see Kayla flying the plane when Owen and Claire are trying to escape the Atrociraptors, and so I guess the Atrociraptor does actually make sense. And then, of course, when she crashes, it's due a lot to the Quetzalcoatlus tearing the plane apart, and then she lands in the icy lake area where the Pyroraptor is living. So the entire set actually ties itself together, which initially I'm like, well, the Atrociraptor doesn't really make any sense. But actually, this is the beginning to the end of that plane's journey in Dominion, from taking off after the Atrociraptor attack to crashing and dealing with the Pyroraptor. But they honestly all look really cool, so let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at these right now. So as far as repacks go, the only one that I can tell is a straight-up repack in this set that would be the Quetzalcoatlus, because here is the Quetzalcoatlus from this set. Here is the Quetzalcoatlus from the mainline minis, and you can see that that is exactly the same. There is no difference at all that I can see. And a lot of the figures have been having, kind of like alternate paint variants, like slight alternate paint variants when it comes to these sets. But the Quetzalcoatlus in this set is definitely the exact same one that we had in the mainline figures. We do, however, have the Atrociraptor. Now, this Atrociraptor is the same sculpt, but we have a different paint job. We have had one similar to this in the past, but it was kind of like a really basic version of this color scheme. And what we have on this one is basically like a very, kind of like a light tannish brown for the entire majority of the upper part of the dinosaur. You can see it runs from the head all the way out onto the tail, which is really nice to see. And then we have an off-white or a light gray for the lower half of the dinosaur, which is also really nice to see because we have coloration again from the head all the way out onto the tail, which definitely really looks nice. And then we have some really nice dark browns that kind of run down into the palette. You can see they also run there around the eye socket area. There's a few splotches and spots of that dark brown in the back of the neck. And then we also have some stripes running down the neck that run down into the stomach region. My camera's not focusing correctly, but run down into the stomach region. And then you can see more of that brown out there on the tail that kind of lead out into the tail. There is also a speckling on the figure, which looks really nice, adds a little extra color variation. And we do have painted eyes, even though they're a little hard to pick up on, but the eyes are painted. So probably honestly one of the nicer Atrociraptor minis that I think we've had. That one's actually really quite nicely done. No nail paint or anything, but that's not something I expect we'll see at all on these minis like this. And then we also have Kayla, and actually it looks pretty good. Like when it comes to these minis, I feel like the last few that we had, I think we had, maybe it was Claire and Owen, I forget, but they were not really all that good as far as accuracy goes. And although Kayla's not perfect, I feel like she looks a lot better than the previous ones did. Quite a bit of color to her as well. We have, of course, the eyebrows and eyes painted out there. You've got some nice black coloration for her hair. You also have the kind of like a light greenish type of a color for her vest. darker green for her sleeves, a different shade of green for her pants. You also have blue gloves and brown boots. And the detail on the figure for how small it is honestly impressive. Like really, really impressive and really quite vibrant through the course of the entire figure. And you do have articulation on these. You have waist articulation. You also have arm articulation. And you have leg articulation. So on a figure that small, that is really impressive. And honestly, her likeness is pretty darn nice. Like, it actually looks, I think, like Kayla. So they definitely did a good job on this one. That might be the best minifigure human so far. And then we've got the plane. And the plane as well is really quite nicely done. You can see super highly detailed. We have some color variation on it as well. We have kind of like a nice silver color. And then we have a bluish tone up here. Really nice paint application to that. You can also see that we have that checkered look out here, and then you have a nice little red here on the front of the plane, and then black right there. So definitely really nicely done. The propellers, I'm not sure if they do articulate, but they're a little hard to move. Like, they're really stiff, but they absolutely do articulate. So you do have a little extra articulation there, and you can again see that as far as the detailing aspect goes, it's actually really, really well done for something like this. So definitely a really cool, fun addition to the set, and I actually really like that they had included this. Initially, I was like, it's a plane in the minifigure line. I'm not really all that excited about it, but I kind of like how this entire set ties Kayla's adventures through Dominion together really quite nicely. And then the only brand new dinosaur sculpt, we have the Pyroraptor, and that actually is really nicely done. And actually, shockingly, I would say probably the best Pyroraptor released by Mattel so far, because we actually have some pretty nice looking feather detail there out onto the arms. You can see the arms actually have larger feathers. Fingers crossed they do that for one of the larger figures, but that actually looks really nice. And in general, the sculpt is really impressive. You can see that we have some really nice detailing there in the face. You've got the teeth sculpted out right there. Nice skin texture as well as feather detail. The eyes are painted with kind of like a greenish tone. They do have a black pupil, it looks like. You have some feathers sticking off of the back of the head, and all of the feather detail through the course of the figure is actually really vibrant. I would say even better than their larger Pyroraptor figures were. And you can see again the feathers in the arm look great. You've got a pretty nice foot sculpt. Of course, it's oversized, but it looks pretty nice. And you have coloration from the head all the way out onto the tail. Beautiful detailing on the underside. Really nice feather detail there on the tail as well. I would definitely say that's the best Pyroraptor that Mattel has released yet. You have a nice reddish tone again for the back, and then again black for the lower part. But that is a really nice looking figure. So psyched to have a mini version of the Pyroraptor now in the Mattel line. As far as a size goes, I will hold the tape measure here over the top, but we're not going to measure any dinosaurs specifically because they're, quite varying in size, and there's just a lot to measure. And I feel like if you happen to have already been introduced to the minifigures from Mattel, you're already going to have a pretty good idea of the size of them. If not, they're a little bit smaller than the older minis from Mattel. But of course, I will do a size comparison. So for that, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our minifigure set here. And you can definitely see that, again, they are very small. Much smaller than, of course, your mainline Mattel figures, but being minis, that's to be expected. And if you are, again, familiar with the minis at all, you should have a pretty good idea, and especially since we are pretty far now into the minifigure line with Dominion. This is like the probably 6th, 7th maybe set that I've reviewed, including of course the mainline minis, so we are pretty far into this by now. I would hope you probably have an idea of the size, but if not, then hopefully these guys here will help you. So this brand new Mattel Fight or Flight minifigure set is really fun. Actually, a lot more fun than I was expecting it to be. When I had initially purchased it, I was like, we have a little minifigure Kayla and a minifigure plane. Like, that's cool. I thought the Atrociraptor was actually the same one that we had prior, but I was wrong there. And we have the Quetzalcoatlus, which I do already have. The only figure I was really excited about was the Pyroraptor. But here, having it in hand, I like the set a lot more than I initially thought I would. The Quetzalcoatlus is a gorgeous figure. Of course, it was with the initial release. Still beautiful now if you didn't get the figure with the initial run, which you still can. But if you didn't, then this is a fun way to get a hold of it. But if you did get it, then why not have two, I guess, because it is beautiful. And of course, actually has a little bit of articulation in the wings and everything, which makes the figure even cooler. But an absolutely gorgeous version of the Quetzalcoatlus from Jurassic World Dominion. And then you have the Atrociraptor, which is probably one of my favorite Atrociraptors we've had so far. Like, I really like the coloration of it. And this is, of course, I'm speaking of the minifigures, but the coloration of it looks really nice. It's really quite nicely applied, especially for being a mini. And with the eye placement being so good on something so small, that's pretty impressive to have such tiny eyes, and Mattel actually had them painted out, so that's definitely a plus as far as that figure goes. And plus, in general, I love the Atrociraptors from Jurassic World Dominion. The plane is pretty darn cool, nothing that I'm absolutely head over heels in love with, but it's still a really neat extra, and it is pretty fun to have the plane that Kayla flies in Jurassic World Dominion. And on top of having that really cool plane, we also have Kayla herself in minifigure form, and like I had stated a little bit earlier, I feel like that's actually the best version of the minis that, as far as the mini humans that we've had so far, because she actually kind of looks like Kayla. The others didn't really look like the humans they were meant to represent that much, whereas I think this Kayla figure definitely does look a little bit better than the others did. And then we have the Pyroraptor, which of course, in my opinion, is the star of the show and completely steals this entire set because it's a gorgeous looking sculpt. And like I had stated, probably the best version, or at least close to the best version of the Pyroraptor we've had from Mattel so far. I would say it's the best just because we actually have the feathers out there on the arm, which is something that all of the more mainline versions of the Pyroraptor was missing. And the sculpt is honestly insane for how small it is. Like, it is a really, really nicely detailed Pyroraptor from the Mattel Jurassic World minifigure line. So as a whole, this is an awesome set, definitely one that I really quite love, a lot more than I was expecting to. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this on Big Bad Toy Store, where I purchased mine. So make sure you check that link, grab this set before it sells out, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.